Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies, gentlemen, and to all the Reese's Pieces in between. Yo, I'm your bro, yo main, and yo spick. I'm your host. This is So Papo again with another solo edition of the Evers on the Soul podcast, the Soul Papo Incognito podcast, and that AKA the Spick podcast with a testimonial week of news of how I guess fuck we really is as a society, and how most can't be satisfied, as if it's just to be satiated wasn't the end goal. We need access, but I could just be talking about myself after job hopping and hopping, hipping and hopping and scooting and hollering. I found myself nearing to a place that I haven't been to for about maybe 2 to 3 years ago, which I guess was a good thing for finance. But IDK sort of thing when it comes to professions and journeys that drain me spiritually, because in all the time that I had to pull a bitch, or like I like to call it, pulling a Riri, shout out to obscenities and domestic violence and pop star who I'll later be discussing the show, but I'm upset. And I guess you could also shout out to friend's own nigga, Mr. Drizzy Drake, in that I'm a little scared that if I don't climb where I want to climb at the same time, just achieving that and then not prosper and like side ventures as well. Um, Let me go back. Because again, I want to climb to a certain thing, right? And the job thing that I'm currently at the same time, if I do that, which would be the hope, I would worry that, you know what I'm saying, I wouldn't take care of the stuff that I have on the sides. And then I think to myself, well, why can't we have our cake and, eat it too? At the same time, then I think that, I'm like, well, damn, that's hella selfish. Why am I so selfish? And I get asked that a lot, because it's not that it ain't true. And as much as I want to take it in vain that I feel destined or I feel entitled, I feel like just another motherfucking millennial cocksucker. And the hipster, anti-hipster in me can't stand or even sit on my ass for that matter. And it can't, like I have this like internal conflict that wages war, and then I find myself at another time or timeline, passport stamp sort of thing that goes on with history repeating itself, or going where I haven't gone before, and or as I see it as having to get so damned in the loop-de-looped of a freeway where I'm trying to make sure that I definitely don't miss the exit this time. It's like I see it coming. And I don't think there's any much more anticipatory sort of feeling than when it comes to that. Like, oh, shit's coming up. It's coming up. Gotta make sure I look at both lanes. Gotta make sure I don't run into shit. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get out this bitch. And maybe I'm just smoking weed a little bit too much in the freeway. But I guess time will tell. And hopefully you can take that, interpret that, and hopefully it helps you along your own journey. Hopefully I'm not the only one going through it, which I'm sure that we all do somehow, some way. But we just may not all see it. And the world that we currently live in definitely is good to distract us, infuriate us, lead us, badger us. I mean, do Lord knows what to us. I just hope that we all stay woke. And I just hope that when we do realize that we are awake, that we don't just stand idly by. And then when we do realize where we are and that we're awakened, that we move and that we, just keep moving. Because both, and I mean that both physically into the matters of the brain, which I'll definitely wrap up with once I get into more health-related news. But I mean mostly emotionally and spiritually, because there's like so many dead around us. It could drown us. And I kind of want to quote a Jesus line that he vaguely said. I'm going to definitely butcher it and have my own twist to it. But he said, leave the dead to bury the dead. And hurry up and take a shit and get off the damn pot. But again, let me retread back. Let me start at the beginning of the show with some of the past news articles that you may have missed or just may not have been aware of or might not give two shits about, but I hope to change your mind and stimulate you a little bit. I want to take it from the top for some shit that popped off here locally. And this really broke my goddamn heart. Well, bless the heart. Yo, this lady who I'm assuming she was a worker for the Amazon distribution center in Phoenix, most precisely right on 51st Avenue in Lower Buckeye. This lady, well, there was a newborn baby found dead. It was called into the police. They eventually then found the lady. They have not released her name nor given any sort of information if she she was facing any sort of charges, which you would fucking hope so. But at the same time, there's been so many stories of people not realizing they have babies until literally till they're pushing it out. Whether it be because maybe as a people we can't afford a certain healthcare coverage, that we may ignore something so tiny and so bearable, that we kind of don't give too much attention to it. And it could obviously lead to big things like this, to where you're literally figure out there wasn't what you thought might have been an ulcer, and then worried, oh shit, it might be a tumor. No, motherfucker, get the whole baby. And obviously not being prepared for it. I mean, it goes to explain why the baby wasn't alive. And I guess they confirmed that it was nearly full term, if not full term. So that baby grew to obviously to the point to where it was ready to come out. And what trips me out about similar stories like this, because this happened, I think, if it wasn't the LAX, it was whatever airports in New York, and literally had the baby, left it there. I'm sure proper authorities got to it not so long afterwards, but they just fucking dumped it. And so to think that she literally had a fucking dumpster baby that she just threw off and left in the fucking restroom, probably went back to work all, I mean, I imagine all full of gus and putz and Lord knows what, placenta. And I can't imagine what she was going through, as well as what would lead you to like fuck. Because we've heard about Amazon and Google's being super strict on breaks and lunches, and I work in a sort of field where I'm constrained and tethered by a fucking wire, and I gotta cut my break short just to make it back on time, and then go back into the rigmarole, which again can be draining. Again can be like, fuck, I know how this rodeo goes. I hopefully again want to do the best there of it, but I'm going back to this. And what I don't know. It's weird talking about this on my own, just because this such audacity, not knowing exactly where to go to it or from it. And there is some websites that I saw in an article from locally down here, that I guess lead you to, there's organizations like maggiesplace.org. You've probably heard, I don't know whether or not people think it's like myth or whatever about dropping the kids off at the fucking fire station, but there's things like that and other resources down. So again, www.maggiesplace.org. If you find yourself in a situation where you might need to do what's the opposite of dine and dash, or where you just dropping off a baby, there has to be some kind of way. And I can't imagine, again, just not because just trying to be a parent itself, wanting to prepare and to budget and things like that, that can already be crazy for someone who definitely doesn't see it coming, but definitely didn't believe in some kind of birth control. Some motherfuckers just shoot their shots. Let's just be real. That happens, and they may not say nothing. It's terrible. It's very savage. You know what I'm saying? But people, shoot the shots how they do, and sometimes they do it, with a little fade away with their hands still up, and you can tell they're waiting for it to, go into the net. And sometimes they just dip the fuck out, and you don't know what you was doing because you was holding up your damn stuff. I mean, there's just so much, and I can't really drag anyone in the mud of that sort. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up here for all that I have here locally. But now, locally, I guess is relevant to wherever the hell you is, and going back to what was her name, Jayme class, who again was a little Wisconsin girl who got snatched up by some dude named Jake Thomas Patterson, a 21-year-old dude who, when I read more into this, it tripped me out because and again, mind you, we live in a society where all this information is just at a fingertips, a punch, you know what I'm saying? It's on our phone, it's on anything. I mean, hell, you could probably even use your, I don't know, baby's ABC learning machine, and that bitch probably has a way to be connected to the Wi-Fi, which again can connect to the internet, which again can give you so much information. All our data is being uploaded and streamed all at once. But again, going back to this cat, he had shaved his head. I think he shaved his eyebrows. He waxed himself. He did a whole bunch of stuff to pretty much not leave any DNA when he snatched this little girl up. And for those, again, that ain't too hip to the story, and I talked about this last week, you probably hear about this constantly and don't want to hear about it anymore. But again, this dude had taken information I'm actually wondering how he found these people exactly, because supposedly the town, he doesn't live anywhere close to this town. The only relations he had to it was working at a factory for like 2 days. Um, and then again, that's the only connection he had to the town, right? Well, it just so happens that town, that place that he worked at, I forget the name of the organization, is also where the parents of this little girl worked. And what's even more fucked is this dude was just a temp. Like, he literally was hired from a temp agency and worked those 2 days. And as far as all they have any information on him was that he never reported up for his third day. Call it no call, no show. And that's job abandonment, whatever. But I trip out of what he had to have done and how he had the resources to get those employees' informations. Now, again, I'm not too sure where the timeline goes, but apparently in his confession, he says that he sees this little girl, Miss Jimmy Claus, coming out of a fucking school bus, and that as soon as he saw her, he knew that she was the one he was going to take. Now, again, the connection from that to him getting the job at the very same place her parents worked, I can't tell if that's where he got their information from. I can't even tell how he could have saw her and figured out who her parents were. Which again, that's a little bit loose in the details of where the connection may have came from and why it came from said information that was given. Maybe from the school bus she went into her parents' car. Maybe he saw like a license plate. I mean, I'm not too sure, but somehow figuring out who they are, where they work, how to get through it. Again, he slipped into a temp agency, was just there for however much long. Again, not too sure how he's connecting these dots, but they seem pretty connectable, you know what I'm saying? If I had a motherfucking crayon or pencil and, you know what I'm saying, just going through A to B. And again, he made it to the home, found out where they lived, shot them with a shotgun, leaving no DNA evidence because he cleaned. I don't know how it is you burn prints off or whatever, but he shaved himself, didn't leave any bit of evidence that ever traced it back to him. But whether he was getting comfortable, she was playing it cool, or whatever was going on, after 8 months. Is it 8 months? No, it's been since October. So October, November. I don't know. It's been a good little while. If she was working somewhere, she would have made it past probationary period. I'm just saying. And it's fucked up. She may not have ever reached her period. I don't know. I don't know exactly at what bit of adultism this little teenage girl has made it through. But obviously, she wasn't there. By giving consent. She was literally kidnapped. Her parents were killed. And one of the things that gets me on this, because again, she was able to escape, so I'm pretty sure he was getting comfortable or getting sloppy or, whatever. She didn't show any sign of, of will to want to leave. I'm not too sure. There's still very little details, and it sucks because she's so young. I can't tell if they would give that kind of information out. I mean, they have her name out because she was already a missing person, so we had that. But I digress. This guy went through a lot of efforts to do this. And one of the things that popped up this past week about it was the fact that there was a $50,000 reward for anyone that had information on, the safety or capturing of what's his name. And what trips me out is that she technically saved herself. I mean, obviously there's a lady who she had ran into who... she told to call the police. She told who she was, and whatever, try to get the F out of there. I'm just wondering, does she apply for that $50,000 reward? Shouldn't she deserve it just because she's the one who got that motherfucker arrested? And of course, the lady who helped, and hopefully she breaks off a little bit. And at the same time, she has no parents. So, I'm pretty sure she has a next of kin, which I think might have been her auntie or her grandmother or someone that she was reporting that she was doing good, I guess, all things considered. I don't know the fact that she's, in safe hands. And I'm wondering, do you go to school after that? Like, do you just right away go into, this is everyday life while there's, shit that needs to be figuring? Like, what happens to that? And then how do you kind of live? Your face has been posted everywhere. It's been on news sites. It's been, given national coverage. Podcasters like myself is talking about it. So, like, with all these murmurings and grumblings and just all around natural curiosities. Like, where does someone come from that? How do you balance that life? And then it's a matter of, and I laugh so much at people like, for example, I can't even think of their names, but not to even throw any salt in any D-list celebrity that still trying to make it, still trying to survive, maybe just doing exactly what's necessary. You can be in public image and say not have two dimes to squeeze, which again would make it difficult to you know, make it amongst whatever sort of crowds you're trying to mingle in with. But again, even just for her, just being a survivor, just continuing on, like, how long is it going to be till we see a Lifetime movie? You know what I'm saying? Are people trying to buy those rights? Who's able to negotiate that? If she's underage, like, where would this go? Is there going to be some sort of sponsorship deals? Like, are we going to even try to even focus on this? Because obviously, you know what I'm saying, Latin and little black girls and other peoples of other ethnicities can go missing every day, and and we'll chalk it up to being murdered or whatever, and then no offense, my Anglo-Saxon folks, little white girl gets kidnapped and she survives, God bless that. And we want to make this into such a frenzy, and again it's gonna sell into other things, whether it be a movie, whether it be something, and it's so crazy just because how young they are, especially the captor. I mean, I guess there's really no age limit to how you can be to be a piece of shit, but we're seeing it, and it's so crazy that it's happening live, and at the same time, there's so much other things that are happening that we don't want to pay attention to. So I'm wondering, was this perfect timing? How could this 21-year-old who, mind you, I was living my own, I was doing my thing, can have this stash space? You know what I'm saying? And motherfucking type to be going, working through temp agency after temp agency, I'm assuming, if you only work 3 days at one place unless that was the mission, how he's able to maintain. And I'll get into, because Alex Jones might briefly make a thing into the news later on about conspiracy theorists and shit of that nature. But I mean, we look at people like, I forget the Jeffrey Dahmer looking nigga from the Batman Colorado shooting. Again, he couldn't afford half of the ammunition that was stashed up in his place. There's obvious things of cover-ups in that nature. As far as this thing goes, I mean, kids play enough violent games to know how to use a damn shotgun, right? So like that shouldn't be too mind bending or to try to comprehend. But as far as just how he was able to connect the dots, I don't know. I mean, I guess young hackers every day, right, can find stuff. There's still so many questions to be answered by it, and it's a trip just to think about, just to even consider. And again, it's shit shows like this that makes you wonder if they're staged. Because a lot of times, again, we put these things on a public pedestal, so to speak, because we want justice, we want retribution, and at the same time, we want a fucking show. And I guess to go off from this, Mr. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who we know being like the creme de la creme of like Mexican cartels, drug pushes and whatnots. He's been on trial because he, even after escaping and and reawakening some other places, he finally snatches up. We extradited him to New York. He's definitely causes even more terrible traffic jams, what I'm saying, for people to get to point A to point B whenever they gotta move his ass, because they can't allow him to leave. And if they were, it would just be a total bitch slap to how well organized we are. And again, we're very well organized, where I'm sure we can get something from point A to point B. And if that were to slip through the cracks, like let's say Tupac's murder in Las Vegas, with it being a gridlock sort of system, there's shenanigans, and it would definitely point to there being, obviously I imagine there's corruption in all sorts of levels and edges, walks of life, but it would be more public, more in the eye, if he were to slip through like a little booger. Not that I'm calling that shit, what I'm saying? Motherfucker to say, give me this much money to smuggle, what I'm saying, to slip on in. How could I say no if I got so many debts and I need new vehicles? Come on now. It's difficult, but what I'm saying, I wasn't chosen. Anyways, someone who was chosen and hired to defend his ass is actually getting more, I don't want to say praise, I don't want to say it, we'll say attentions. And that's for his own little mischievous natures. And the attorney, Mr. El Chapo, and I'm trying to pull up his name, even though I'm not finding it, his own lawyer is in the news because of someone, and I guess his name is Jeffrey Lichman. And he is getting into shenanigans with a restaurant. I don't know how you call it, entrepreneur of restaurants, a restaurapreneur, Sarma Mengilinis. I'm not sure. Melngailis. I'm not too sure. This bitch was actually convicted back in 2017 for scamming investors for one of her eateries, and out of like a whole $1 million. So you know what I'm saying. The fact that a hoe like this is messing with a lawyer, I'm pretty sure he's doing what he can to keep her safe. You know what I'm saying. Slap it on his knob now. I guess the tricky part about this is the fact that this man is a married man, and there was leaked sexts of him and this girl, and it's some pretty corny shit. Unless that's just, I guess as steamy as the shit that Fox News was able to give out to listeners. But it did trip me out that this was garnering attention. The judge had to bring this up to the jury because the jury, again, being a jury of I don't know who the fuck's peers, having to give a verdict whether this motherfucker is guilty or not. And if you have any sort of prejudice or any sort of knowledge of representing parties or people that are on trial, if you have any kind of opinion on them, like, you're to be removed, because then it wouldn't be a fair trial, apparently. So judge has to actually give this information to these people. And then it's funny because the article then says, yeah, the jury had no idea of what was going on. And it's funny in a not so haha kind of fun way, but in a oh really, is that what's going on kind of sorts, because this information wasn't public knowledge. I mean, I didn't read about it until after the fact, so them having to bring it to whatever's attention, I guess at some point you don't know, who has access to what and who might have been aware of what. But now when you do that, does that slow down the process? Because then you have to find a whole new jury because now they've been contaminated with? Is this some kind of scheme? Again, I'm pretty sure that the attorney didn't want to get his shit put on blast. But, you know what I'm saying? We know that Chapo had an IT connect. We know how easily it is to kind of dangle carrots in front of the horse that is America, that's running around in place for, whatever entertainment or, sleight of hand trick. Could that have been planted? And who could have been planted by? You know what I'm saying? I know it sounds like also conspiracy-ish, but I mean, seriously though, this wasn't out there. So again, to have to throw this in there, to throw the monkey wrench, to slow down the process, it sounds pretty clear cut that this is what it was for, and it was working. So again, I feel like as we move on, as we live, maybe forget about things, we're showing our hands, so to speak. We're given the blueprint somewhat for the people who maybe have more patience, resources, and will to want to achieve, can use for whatever sort of malicious intent. Now, you would hope not, right? You'd figure with that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. But I'm saying at the same time, I mean, yeah, that's very true. And not everyone is responsible. You can tell by how many bastard babies we got around this motherfucker running, you know what I'm saying? Living, breathing. Let alone the ones that, Lord forbid, or unfortunately, Lord, watch over them, didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? So, that is definitely a heartbreaker. Now, in that very essence, in that same regard, it is not kind of like in realty. It's all about location, both. And what you might receive as education, both what you might have available to you as resources, and also just, having to look down thereof. I wanted to get into a story actually I got from NBC News about what affects health more. And there was a story, or there's a theory, a study, I guess, of if it's about our DNA code or if it's about our zip code. And you figure those shits shouldn't ever intertwine or should ever affect the other. But as this article goes by Miss Maggie Fawkes, it states, what matters more to your health? Is it nature or is it environment? Now again, the study that was started to answer that question in a comprehensive kind of way shows that scale falls on the side of nurture over nature, at least for the current young adults. And again, this could be ever changing with technology. So a team of Harvard Medical School and University of Queensland in Australia built what they say is the world's largest database of twin data based on health insurance claims covering nearly 45 million people. Twins shares much of their genetic code and sometimes share the same environment, so they are useful for studying the impact genetics for the impact of what genetics has on health, behavior, and other outcomes. Now, this story that was published in the Journal of Nature Genetics, unfortunately, doesn't have any sort of big surprises, because overall, for diseases and conditions that hit people by early adulthood, they're saying that genes account for about 40% of the variations from one person to another. So environment, broadly, like climate, pollution, and socioeconomic statuses, accounts for most of the rest. So that environment, in quotations, usually also includes behavior such as diet and lifestyle. And you can tell me that it ain't cheaper to be a fat fuck than it would be to be a healthy motherfucker. I'm just saying genetics has had that largest influence on early in life eye diseases and on cognitive and learning disorders. So environments was the clearest factor in morbid obesity, and unsurprisingly, on infections such as Lyme disease, which is spread by ticks. And it also, to no surprise, apparently is the biggest factor in leading in poisoning. Now, they're saying that 5,600,000 twin pairs were all, 24 and younger at the time of the study, which started for people born in 1985 and later, millennials. And it's because the researchers needed to follow people who stayed on their parents' health insurance plans. Oh my goodness, this is talking so much shit about millennials. But again, it's because, into U.S. law, you can be as old as 26 to be in it. So anyways, this study that was not aimed for answering the question on whether you can blame your genes or zip code for disease, but it's more to lay a basis for further research into what causes disease on a population basis. Now, I'm going to put a link to the article below, because there's a whole lot more numbers that this lady, Miss Maggie Fox, had gone into calculating, but it's all just to lead to the simple fact that we've been babied too damn much. And now we can literally, I think, have an excuse for anything for the most part. If, seriously, because not only are we, I'm saying like shock culture is like big for like a second, but also outrage culture. You know what I'm saying? We want to be pissed off about something. We want to find an excuse in something. Now, I recently have been told, and this is what upsets me so much, especially comparing that this next person I'm about to speak to is pretty obvious in his bigotry. Now, I would hope that for y'all that are listening, to hopefully enjoy the show, probably more when it's the duo combat of me, Miss Arizona verse, to think, I'm saying, that when I use certain words, both of racial inflection and just derogatory remarks in general, that it's because I have hatred or any sort of disgust in my heart towards any particular type of people, and I want to go on record to state that that is not the case before any of that would ever come up over some other BS that, gets turned and prodded and twisted. And, we saw that shit happen to Mr. Kevin Hart, who, by the way, as big of a fan as I am, or that I was, or that, whatever I simmer to be, because, when you come down to McCartney or Lenny, McCartney, fuck you. J. Cole or Kendrick, fuck you. When it comes to Kevin Hart, Chappelle, it's Chappelle. Like, fuck you. Again, I say all that to say, unfortunately, that he did what's it called? Fresh Air with the goddess herself, Miss Terry Gross, on NPR, and in his hometown. So, like, come on now, like, know your people. And he just sounded so, not to say brand new, but he was just being so, and I'm talking shit right now, I'm hating because he had the opportunity, no doubt, but he had the chance to really explain and to dig himself out of the hole of, his, the BS that popped off with his tweets, and he just butchered it. He just sounded more ignorant. He could have gone into being real and not just using these, stereotype views without giving an explanation behind the stereotypical view. She was giving you your soapbox to explain yourself, get into detail. You know what I'm saying? Like just how when you see, for example, for any people that are JRE fans, if you see something that's an hour and a half, you realize, okay, they may have not had that good of chemistry. They had to wrap that shit up. Or, oh, it was just there strictly for promotional reasons and couldn't hang. They had to wrap that shit up. We see something for 3 hours, like, okay. This technical difficulty has been brought to you by getting way too excited and having some old ass equipment. Now I'm gonna calm myself with marijuana. Life is usually a whole lot better with marijuana. Alright, so I realize I probably shouldn't be hating on Mr. US's name the whole time, but again, he didn't give the proper explanation that I feel like he could have, that me as a fan, me as a listener of both parties, feel like deserved. And there's missed opportunities like that that I don't want there to be. And again, I know, there's hopefully, if we're ever so lucky, there's a very long life. And some would say life is a little too long, I just hope to not have to run out of Medicare or, whatever sort of, no, what am I talking about? Oh my goodness. That commercial break. It wasn't even a commercial break. It was a motherfucking technical difficulty. Because I got so excited, I freaking fling my wires up in here. If y'all ever want to contribute to some better equipment, please be my guest. You also get production credits of the show. You can go to patreon.com/Papo. SOULPAPO. And I was just trying to go into, and again, trying to refer back to the words that I use, however strong, again, is to give further emphasis on how bad it is out there, and both how we're seen as a community, as a minority demographic, as whatever that isn't the supreme being, that I give total, not to say praise, but total, like, it should be obvious the fuckery that is being spewed, that I'm laughing about, that I'm joking about. If ever that isn't evident, make sure to pull up Exhibit A first before, continuing forward. And Lord, forgive me, and I don't want to dig myself into anything. I just, again, want it to be known, because I get for my very own laugh. And you know what? I might even give you an episode where she gets to chew me out. That might be coming up. That's in the works. But I get just a lot of grief for ongoing jokes that, again, it's an ongoing joke and it's offensive because it needs to be addressed. And again, maybe I'm too low on the totem pole right now to be having such social commentary. So, natural in life. But everyone should view it. Everyone should address it. No one wants to address the elephant in the room. So then that's why you put it up on such broad shoulders and such obvious, pedestals. Because again, it's to be addressed, it's to be commented on, it's to call, a square, and not so much to idolize or to give glory to, which I think is a problem whenever we mention something. But again, it can get flipped, it can get reversed, it can get shit on, and more than likely, 9 times out of 10, it's just going to be offensive to someone, somewhere, somehow. And it's those very things that, again, can get us lost more in the sauce of all that which is fucked around us recently. And I guess the thing I was trying to segue into that, I guess I did in a full around NBA Jam ridiculous style of motion. The dude from InfoWars, he had recently jumped on the ranks of joining Roku, which is one of those streaming services a la to like a Fire Stick or whatever. And he, again, joined the same ranks of Spotify, Periscope, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Apple, fucking even YouPorn, of having his show banned. And I think that's so fucking hilarious. People do not like this cat. And at the same time, because of the people that do not like him and have gone to the far extent of silencing, understand it's going to razzle and dazzle and create a culture, a cult culture to people wanting to defend him. I'm not saying I'm amongst them, but Mr. Alex Jones, again, for as crazy as he is, sometimes people might say even asinine, for his affiliation with Trump, and then his public blowing of him saying my audience base is 90% on your approval site, it makes you question exactly if we should give this guy a platform. But the sheer fact that we can have platforms, anyone talking about whatever the fuck they want to talk about, they're all backing together to stop him. So again, it's gonna give more voice. It's like, I forget the name of this band. I remember, shout out to Frank, or Frazi as he's known online, and I'm totally forgetting the name of his blog, but he's a total genius. I haven't talked to him in damn near 10 years, but I still get his newsletter updates via email. T Frankie, I think is what it is. Yeah, y'all do your Googles and send him my love. Here's his band, and I'm getting sidetracked, but there's his band where it's such heavy distortion. It's like, it's kind of like difficult to fucking listen to. But if you listen to it and you dig into the lyrics, or you maybe enjoy such noisy shit, then you then get this real poetic yet super poppy music that it's like, man, those are such opposites. You made me work so hard for it. And then there's like an elitist culture that, then give them praise more, both for their technicality and then also their sugary sweetness that, hey, don't we all want to, rot our teeth to? Not to say that Alex Jones is that onion of sorts you have to dig for, but the sheer fact that, again, he's made it to the ranks that he has and is also being thrown down the way that he has, I hope shows that there's some kind of justice popping off, because both for him probably being upset of being let go because so many people complained to leave this company, and no matter, even though he didn't have any fucking sponsors, he just needed somewhere to publish his content on. Like, man, we can't help you. Too many people were pissed. You're trying to fuck with our money. We're giving you free, services, or at least, they'd make money off of it. I'm sure somehow, some way, he probably wouldn't get any sort of cut, I imagine, just to try to save face of for putting him on the services. So in fact, they had to kick his ass out over 24 hours. 24 hours to lose job. And now myself, for me being the eccentric and sometimes very passionate and then sometimes very loused sort of person, I laugh at my latest little venture into how long I was able to hang on top of the bull before getting knocked the fuck over of my own mental retardations. This brother could have made it 24 hours. And I'm wondering, is this the rebuke of Trump? Is this the sheer fact that maybe he chose the wrong horse to praise? Or is it because he's just burnt that many bridges and rustled that many feathers? And I guess if that's not like one of the biggest slaps to my bout chinny and chin is just thinking to myself, oh man, that once that happens, like, what is there left? But again, I would presume, because I don't want to assume and then just sound weird in all its retort, but he has to be able to fish out of there. He's gonna have to have someone be like, you know what, no, we're gonna stand by him, we're gonna give him his own little soapbox, we're gonna help this brother out. I can't say, and it's so weird because he's so scattered on stuff, and I just wasn't ever too much of a dedicated listener to him, where he sits on most fences. But man, is it entertaining to see him just fucking lose his shit to something? And I almost feel like in a messed up way, that's entertainment. I think at its finest, and that's where you get, I guess, know the most real. Someone just loses their shit, gets super fucking whatever, bursts and explodes. You could tell, holy shit, that was real. Like, there was no doubt in that. And again, what makes all these terroristic attacks on other ends, if it isn't by social media blast or power of an on and on switch to the internets, like, it's people taking the most basic of basic approaches. I didn't look up any articles on this next thing that just popped into my head of just people getting called out for, and then again, this was happening locally, and I don't know what the dude's name was, because I think he was underage, or I think maybe he just might have been 18. I don't recall. Y'all can do Google's local Valley man, and he tried to attack a police officer. I guess he turned himself in for something to get the police out to, I guess, arrest him. And when the police came out, he was fucking throwing rocks and shit at him, like trying to stone him to death. And I guess once he figured, okay, this shit isn't gonna work, doing it the literal biblical way wasn't gonna work, let me get this knife out. You know what I'm saying? As soon as that shit happened, they shot his ass. I don't think he died. I think he's still alive, which is weird that he lived and they didn't release his name. At least not that maybe I just, because I didn't do my homework. So sue me. Don't sue me. Bless me, please. He again got arrested for being probably like one of the dumbest terrorists. Just, not to say that the people who pulled off 9/11 or whatever were smart, but there was some inside intel. There was some time in the supposed conspiracy of that they knew whatever the case may be. That shit was plotted, right? That shit was executed to a T. This motherfucker just, I don't know if he just woke up one day. I'm gonna revolt and I'm gonna throw fucking stones at them because they're bastards. Again, terrorists, whether domestic or international, or however it is that they label it, like, it happens in so many forms. And I feel, in a sense of internal terrorism, as far as stopping the word, whether it be a good word or not. That's a way of control, and that's what some of these people, or all these people that do something out loud to try to stop something, accomplish something, they're the ones that had enough. And it kind of takes that in order to maybe get to the next step, and whether that be, a change in profession, whether that be moving on to the next Mormon level spiritually, whether just what, or I don't know, you're in Red Dead, and I still haven't got to get out of winter yet. I don't get to play it enough. I'm playing too much of the bullshit, get myself distracted, lose the main point of, again, what's going on with yourself internally and what you're battling against. And I guess still to try to keep it internally in the reference of, did I just hit business or technology? I mean, I guess Roku is a bit of a technology. Entertainment somewhat is what Alex Jones does, besides try to give you news and realsies information. I guess in segueing into other realsies news, Mr. Anthony Miller. And I don't know about foosball, but apparently he was an NFL player or something. Might have been in the Pro Bowl. I'm not too sure what his achievements was. But he was dicking this lady named is Lauren Sanchez, who is currently Jeff Bezos' new booth. Now, this goes, I guess, in a bit of gossipy shit as well. It's just a bit of, does this affect hard sales? Because people were saying that stocks might have dropped down with this announcement that I'm sure Jeff Bezos was trying to cushion last week or the week before it announced, right, the divorce happening with wife, who he partners with, who he also doesn't have a prenuptial with, who he's gonna. I'm so dead ass excited to see how much he has to give to this bride, who definitely is prettier than this fucking Lauren Sanchez bitch. I'm sorry. I mean, she can have some bomb cooter, but like, as far as public image, like, why are you digging yourself down this hole? So again, let me go into it. This ex Pro Bowl wide receiver cat was saying that he would dick her down for a while. I guess they were in a relationship for what was maybe for 4 or 5 years. He would say that that she would mess around, that she wasn't committed. Other sources then try to say that it was him who was dicking around. And I'm pretty sure they're all whoring it up. I mean, if she's fucking with athletes who I think her husband, who literally she's still legally married to while she's fucking around and having public boyfriends and, leaking all these dick pics, I think is some kind of owner of some sort of team, probably a hella racist cat that somehow fucking decided to give in to boning this Latina who's definitely aging, and makeup and plastic surgery can only cover that shit up for so long. Anyways, he just goes on to say that she, is your atypical, go digging bitch, where, she gives it up where she needs to. When they're around, they're together. When they're not, like, apparently they're not. And she would have never want to have to pay for shit. Apparently he'd gone to the point of engaging to this broad, and that bitch wouldn't even give him back the ring. I don't know if it's a matter of being heartbroken that the woman has to keep it, so that I don't know. I hope to never be in that fucking sort of situation, but I mean, besides being able to be rich, famous, and, the fucking community pussy like this, which, again, doesn't sound like a good idea, especially for, I'm sure, who used to be nerdy, now looking pretty damn chiseled, Mr. Jeff Bezos, who is dicking this broad, and apparently from another source, he's, like, very much in love, which breaks my heart because he's getting lost in the sauce. We're seeing him currently floating around in the sauce somewhere, and the fact that, and then one of the things I hear is that she was already, showing her friends these dick pics that he was sending. That bitch, of course, was sending it to the Inquirer. The Inquirer, as we know, somehow, some way, fucks with Trump, both in the essence that why hasn't he turned into an alien or been killed, in a magazine throughout his whole life, as much as other people have talked shit about him, for the sheer fact that also they have funded one of his cover-ups. I think that might have been with Miss Stormy Daniels. So again, they fucks with each other, And obviously, Trump, not liking Mr. Jeff Bezos, will probably has first dibs on any kind of fucked information, which again came from this current boo thing, Miss Lauren Gamara's Sanchez, something beanery. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that, again, because she was already leaking this shit and it made it to them, they're like, we gotta plug this shit up now. Let's let it be known that you're in the process of divorce. Let's let it be known that we was making moves and y'all was doing this and that she was understanding that you're not a heartless bastard. Let's put this out there. So it was a media, like it was put out there to try to cover fires before they, got out of containment, level breaches. And the sheer fact that, I mean, again, and it can be other people wanting to just talk their shit since, they have a 15 minutes, the fact that people have been throwing this out about her, and come on now, the fact that she's a married woman, having these boyfriends, does that not already say something about her character? You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not saying that it's wrong to hoe it up, because as a former hoe, you know what I'm saying, I remember such pleasantries. But at the same time, like, this bitch supposed to be married and we have to, conform to this ideal image of, good and bad and all this other nonsense, and or straight up truth. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay any of it. But again, I'm stating that what he's getting himself into. And it seems really fucking gnarly. And it kind of sucks. And I hope that, I'm sure he's not that dumb. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure he's not going to be led to believe that. I hope he's not that closed off from the real world as far. And I mean, I would think so, because, he came from nothing. So he has to have some kind of root of stable ground. And then he's starting this health organization. I mean, he has too much on the line to lose that he has to cover all bases. I would hope that he wouldn't be dumb. And if he wouldn't, then he's going to be an example to very many up-and-coming blue blood money cats, for generations to come. And I'm definitely talking shit because, I'm a little salty. Not really salty. It was more so being thirsty. I literally, I need something to quench my thirst. I was physically thirsty, usually, also, sexually and spiritually. But in that same regard, which again got that motherfucker all lost up in it. It's funny how both the hunger for status, the hunger for just more. Again, he's married, probably. I don't know if he has kids or whatnot. She gave him that part. But what I'm saying, that you see matters of the flesh. And that's ever consuming. That's been the downfall since the very get-go. I mean, if you want to take shit back to Adam and Eve, him being tempted just because, he was so tripped up on the pussy. Like, it sounds derogatory, it sounds dirty, but let's call it for what it was. And it's very powerful. This, in that same essence of manipulation and again, other dumb assery that Jeff Bezos got himself into. Like, you figure in this day and age, and supposedly he's very well endowed, so maybe that's why he didn't care too much. But you figure if you didn't want these things to fall out, then you probably should realize that, the things in which you're using have been tripped up before. You know what I'm saying? What makes it so special to be untouchable? And then, if even having a private network of something is realize who you messing with. How well do you know this person? And then again, from what you do know, especially if you know this community pussy, forgive me for referencing it that way, but if you know this, how are you just going into it willy-nilly? I doubt it. I would doubt it, as smart as a man. But again, pussy is strong, both in odor, whether you want to admit it or not, or in sheer power. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes in heft. You know what I'm saying? There's some hefty ones. But again, none more hefty than, I guess, that in which comes from your own. Ooh, that sounds like incest. No, I'm not trying to throw this into that range, but who knows? Because suppose she's an Illuminati princess, Miss Rihana. She filed a lawsuit against her daddy, or I guess in this term, her father, for exploiting her name in pricey business deals. Now, I'm not too sure if maybe this is her way of getting out of some contractual agreements. But again, Rihanna suing her daddy, Mr. Ronald Fenty, again for exploiting her name in some sort of $1 million cases. He, who apparently runs Fenty Entertainment, which kind of makes me think of a Fenty Paris or something like that, also was apparently getting her some gigs, overseas and whatnot, and had conjured up, I guess, or what includes a $15 million tour in Latin America. and then a show in Vegas and somewhere else for like $400,000. Now this is some pricey stuff. Now again, she knows what her snatch is worth, and who knows whether or not she was ever in business with him, because supposedly he's never had any control of her finances, and she's been popping shit off since 2012 or 13. Like, can you imagine, like, I don't know though. And then his company not starting until 2017. Again, goes to show that he might have just been mad that she maybe never kicked him over a couple dollars. Which again, it makes me think of this scene. And shit, I might even sprinkle it around this episode now that I feel inspired. Or I think I might have done it already before using the water boy in some of these spic episodes. But there's a part where Mr. Bobby Boucher, Adam Sandler, who's a foosball player. I don't know if it was for Louisiana or something, some college team. And once he gets discovered at the very end, he finds his happiness the whole time. Oh, his daddy was always a mystery to him, and I'm not too sure if the story was that he died and some kind of Antarctic voyage to gather some kind of water, because I remember he had some kind of precious water from an Alaskan Gila. But anyways, he at the end where you would hopefully get the happy ending you were seeking, the daddy comes back. He's this Louisiana bastard cockeyed dude, and he goes, it's me, it's your daddy, Roberto. And I forget where exactly he leads into saying that he wants to become a father-son team. It's like, we could be like Tiger Woods and his daddy. And it was just crazy. And then remember the mom, I'm not gonna ruin it if you haven't seen it. Fucks with it if y'all have Netflix, because if you don't have Netflix, your cousin has Netflix, and mind you, that shit's going up in price, so you might want to kick your cousin up a couple dollars. I'm saying, for being so nice, and then you use it. But yeah, check it out on Netflix. Waterboy, hilarious. And again, I'm not too sure if he was just trying to cash in on his daughter, and it just took him a few years to kind of get hip to it. But she shut that shit down. And again, I don't know if it was her way of getting out of some contractual deals while still getting some money, maybe kicking it to him that way. But when you're getting into lawsuits, like there's some fees and penalties up in that bitch. So that's going to remain to be seen. But one of the and I don't know how you come back from that. And one of the things too that I always think of, because I love my parents, you know what I'm saying, for giving me life, for giving me, I never lacking really anything. I'm a very grown-tunned motherfucker, so I didn't go hungry. I'm saying, had clothes on my back at all times for the most part. You know what I'm saying? To me not washing my ass or being dirty. I have video game of my choice that definitely led into my obesity and lack thereof wanting to be active. So I was always given. You know what I'm saying? I was always given things. There's no doubt about that. But never had any push. You know what I'm saying? Really, when it came to like education, trying to do the college thing, even though I have my grief and beef with it now, as far as what it's worth and the debt that it causes, but at the same time, like, you got to realize how the world works, and unfortunately, if that's needed, you gotta fucking do it. It's just then a matter of how you obtain it and achieve it and then do it. So again, I would hope, and again, lost in my ownness, is that when me raising my kids, that I raise them well enough and push them hard enough to where if they do achieve what I want for them and what I want, and again, that sounds selfish. I'm saying not what I want, but maybe assisting them become who they need to be, or who they want to be, or who they're happy to be. I would hope that they can kick some back to me, like, hey, I'm not saying you owe me for all them diapers, but it'd be nice if you take me out to eat. You know what I'm saying? And it's so funny because I remember that being one of the things that apparently I would tell my grandma, because I'm a big grandma's boy, and she was the reason why I had to go to church. And of course, we didn't go into the Costco and she'd be feeding my buttery ass up, with whatever little things that we getting out there. And I remember being young, and because she kind of held me, under her wing while my mom and pops, went through their shenanigans. Like, I remember always telling her, like, one day I'm gonna take you to Panda Express, so whatever bullshit. And of course, I became the Jew that I am, never ever wanted to spend any dollars, and which what makes it a funny turnaround. But I would hope, because I know for sure it's all a matter of you need to I'm always thinking about what do I need to survive, and then now that I have family and whatnot, I need to protect and think of what do they need to survive, and then I hold that little thing, and then of course take myself from my own selfish point. I'm trying to go all these different ways, even in conversation right now, which I'm probably rambling on anything. What the hell is this motherfucker talking about? Well, I don't know. Okay, that was the whole point. No, I'm kidding. I would hope that they would look after. You know what I'm saying? It would be a sort of thing to where I'm going to be well off to maybe that won't even be necessary. But again, if that was necessary, I would hope that just that would be there available to me. And I just hope that we don't hate each other. And I hope it's not how I currently have. You know what I'm saying, with my parents. And I feel like that's the whole want. I think with every generation is just to be better, to do better, to hopefully have, I'm saying, to everything just to be better, especially if you're coming from things that are very, very bad. So at least to move us towards the needle of the next fucking step. I have no idea where we're gonna go. I have no idea what's to come forward. I can't even believe some of the things that we're finding now from the past. Lord knows what I'm hiding from my adolescence that, you know what I'm saying, that I'm blocking out into my mind. And which I guess I can't think of any better pushover, segue, transition into some R. Kelly news, which again, if y'all don't know it, sex cult mastermind slash former R&B singer. He, you know what I'm saying, been getting caught up with all the things from all the revelations that people are now seeing from the Surviving R. Kelly documentary to all the shits that followed after that, from him being evicted from his from the studios over. It was actually crazy because I think I mentioned last week, but I didn't get into too much detail. The studios that he has, the reason when the lawsuit was popping up, because supposedly it had nothing to do with, the current allegations of, the sex cult stuff, and it has nothing to do with him harboring, his slaves, which actually no, it was, and yet it's still okay. But the thing is, you can't be harboring slaves in this industry. I guess commercial properties, again, they're meant for work, studio being a place of work, but you're harboring these bitches, and then you're putting so I guess one of the main things, they gotta laugh at it because it's so terrible. He has these bitches behind bars, like literally he had bars installed on the outside of the premises, and he did that without having proper permits, which is what's getting his ass in trouble. Cheapening out, not getting the fucking proper permits you need in order to put them shits in there. But on top of that, while we're on the subject, why is so many young bitches here? And yes, they are living there because we see lights on at the middle of the night. Bam, you're harboring bitches. But again, it's okay that you're harboring me. You can't harbor them here. And it's not even 80,000. It's like now it's 100-something thousand that he owes, and so they're just racking up as they're racking up. And recently, Neil Brennan, he was on the Breakfast Club talking about, I guess, R. Kelly's goons going up to Dave's goons, and there being some kind of negotiation deals. And they bring up too about how when they made the skit about the pee on you, how it was meant. I mean, again, yeah, it's poking fun, it's making light of it, but at the same time, what were you supposed to do? Get a fucking posse and, you know what I'm saying, tie his ass down? He was being defended, he was being allowed, he was getting away with shit. So what could you do with your platform? Call it out. You know what I'm saying? Now, obviously, don't do it in a way to where it seems that damn grotesque and revealing. You put it right there in the eye. You're making fun of it, but this is a real thing. So again, whether or not you want to go up in arms and again start a lynching mob, which, I mean, talking about lynching black folks, might bring up a whole nother discussion. In general, just, it takes a multitude. So again, they definitely did what they did, and some people say that it might have made it okay, made it able to be laughable, but motherfuckers wanted to smash on each other. Like, it was that real, apparently, and I don't doubt it. So you're talking about motherfuckers from the Shy, he must really think he untouchable, because he survived from a place that most don't survive after the age of 21. I'm saying, no bullshit, no, hype, just how it is. And I guess in the realm of hype, though, fucking local hometown acquaintance, Mr. Yeezy, Kanye West, actually went on record. He was doing some kind of I guess he does like a weekly thing where he just rants, and he was talking about, and again, not naming names, but who else is from your hometown that seems to be going through allegations to where, don't think about the allegations, think about the music. Of course, it had some backlash. I'm thinking, holy fuck! Not only do we have a you know what I'm saying, this crazy kook of a man being a Trump supporter in the worst of ways. You know what I'm saying? Now he's condemning, you know what I'm saying, R. Kelly, and again he's under hot fire for, you know what I'm saying, being a pimp, for lack of a better word. And so, of course, Kim Kardashian, she had to come out real quick to fucking settle things down. That it was taken out of context. Such a fucking like. So now, and again, Kim Kardashian, who has PR people, who have all these people who look after her to make sure she don't do no dumb shit. She gotta be that for her husband, because oh, my husband be saying dumb shit. They say this, okay, I'm gonna say that, and out of what context? I mean, yeah, it was part of a bigger conversation. Like, yeah, he was, going in about what we should be remembered by. Like, for example, Mr. Michael Jackson, which again, he has another documentary coming out too about, his allegations and the shit that he got into. And again, that could have been just another way for them to destroy a black man. But I have never seen any whiter man in my life other than him. I didn't know he was black until I had to revisit the song Black and White that he had. And even then, because he was already white, I had to go back to, oh yeah, it was one of the Jackson 5. Oh, gotcha, that's weird, right? So again, I'm not going to get into all that, but that's, I guess, where he was trying to go off the edge from. And again, this is all to defend someone who has been getting away with shit. And you might think to yourself, well then, when is the last shoe going to fall? And technically, I guess one thing that might be a proof of that, testament to that, the record labels, RCA, Sony. I don't know if I thought there were two separate entities, but apparently maybe had two different things going on with each one of them. Maybe one for the hoes, one for his own slave contract. I'm not too sure, but they're finally going to let him go. Now, does that mean that they're not going to make money off his sales because he's had a 60% bump with all the documentaries and shit popping up? People remember, oh yeah, remember his music, oh shit. Listen, whether or not you paid to listen to it, somehow, some way, bills are still getting paid. So he's again making money. So again, it brings it to a point where, like, oh man, now he kind of has more relevance. Oh, man, well, we can't be in the public eye. Everyone is talking about wanting to, take down his music. Well, then we got to do something, or else people are going to get mad at the label. And the label being the biggest pimp, the biggest, subterfuge. And again, them dropping him doesn't mean that they're not going to still make money from him. They just suppose they're cutting ties with him for, I don't know what kind of contract deals he had going on. So now that we're seeing this, I'm wondering, is this going to also mean we're going to see less of his financial backings? Or does that mean that maybe we're going to see less of influence? I mean, there hasn't been any influencers that have come out to defend him. It's just people really trying to sever the ties that they have with him, which again can be bitch made, at the same time trying to save face. At the same time, who knows what they're doing in the background? And where else that's going. But former manager Henry James Mason is surrendering to terrorist threats. So the fact that they're already calling him a former manager, I'm wondering if they're using him as a patsy. I'm wondering if they're just cutting him off entirely. I'm wondering again if it's just his way. Look, I'm gonna bow out. I'll take this hit for you, but after you take the hit, you know what I'm saying, that got to be the last one, because you know what I'm saying, I don't know what the fuck you gonna do with yourself. And which, of course, it'd be funny if he really did escape to Cuba or something, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe to Thailand where he can get little boys instead. I mean, lady boy, that's on him. But the fact that the former manager had to take the comp for, and I know reporting this before all this had gotten bigger, the Surviving R. Kelly thing was gonna premiere somewhere in either it was in Chicago, because again, that's what made it even more heavier than wearing your motherfucking hometown, motherfucker. And they were gonna do a little world premiere of the series, and there were some kind of threats going on that they were gonna bomb the place, or something about killing you and everyone you fucking love, or something like that. There's quotations, and that's what he's getting hit for. They're not saying it was for that incident, but that quote was the exact same quote that they got that shit from. So yeah, that's the same thing. And so again, he's taking the rap for it. I mean, I would assume R. Kelly himself isn't going to be the one to fucking lead that message, because whoever the hell you're talking to, I'd imagine, like, yo, you sound real familiar. Mr. Pop of R&B, is this you? Like, who knows? But he's taking the rap, so I'm wondering, so with that being said, is he losing all signs of defense? What can then come from that? So I feel like this upcoming week, after you hear this, keep an eye, because I feel that, or keep an ear, I don't know, or don't give a fuck about it. You wait till I come and tell you the weekend after, and something's going to pop off from that, because now we're just seeing every little last piece of armor is falling off, so he has to be able to be open for a direct hit. We shall see. I mean, we've seen other things pop off, from being caught up, from being lost up in it. And one of the funniest, I think, ironies in the getting lost up in it, and especially just for the fact that his name makes so, or not his name, but his what he's known for. It's very ironic. The To Catch a Predator host, Mr. Chris Hansen, he recently just got evicted from his New York City apartment for forging checks. Talking about someone who tries to get motherfuckers caught up. He got caught up, and again, I'm not gonna go into that because I didn't know that show still existed. I thought that was a thing from a long time ago before the internet existed. I mean, I guess you figure now it'd be a whole lot easier because so many motherfuckers are on the internet trying to swindle and do all this shameless whatnots. But yeah, R.I.P. I guess to the whatever mantle you felt that you held. And R. Kelly a predator. Yeah, Catcher got caught as well. Yeah, that's gonna do it for entertainment news. All right, let's jump into some health ish for a quick bit because I talked about this a little earlier about the profession I'm currently in, kind of back to the same rigmarole that I used to do, the essence of healthcare, and me just having so much gripes with it to begin with. You figure, why the hell was you doing it? Why are you doing anything you don't love? It pays the bills at the very least rate that I need in order to, be all right. And I say that as, not struggle as much because there's things that there could be that are lacking that would have been nice to have, but you're saying, I'm really not so sorry. Well, until things get bigger, more better, and other people become more rotund. Well, I'm trying to back off of that actually right now as I speak. And as I say that, I actually just got a message here from Mr. Arizona Verse who ran a marathon, and I'll let him give you more details on that because I'm a little not too much in the know, but I know that, he has some kind of medallions and medals, and him being black, he got to be fast. I'm sure maybe he has a sponsor deal now. I hope he's bringing something like that to the table because again, we can use some new microphones. I could use some better internet. There's so many things, and with that, again, just the things that we have to do to work and to survive and to keep things, going, keep the lights on. It can put us at a short fuse, and to the point where we burn out. And there was a New York Post article that was talking about the alarming burnout that is making a lot of doctors want to kill themselves. Now, mind you, this article again going into the healthcare field, which again is, I'd say, no different than other fields where you're literally in front of life and death quite often, constantly, and at all times, So let me just go into this here, talking about the burnout becoming such a huge problem. According to new research, we're seeing the physicians feel completely depleted to the contemplation of suicide. Now, I feel like that same regard goes to people who have families, because not only are you seeing life and death, but you're having to just both help keep uplifting, keep from drowning, and then it being never ending. Because especially when you're growing up with kids, like they're going to be never ending. You would hope that they'd be never ending. So unfortunately, for as long as you want them to live, they're also going to bring you all this grief. And we'll get into that in another podcast. Again, possibly something real special you might hear coming up soon. But they're talking about this article that was released this past week about the feeling of being so stressed out to the point where they again considered leaving, the field altogether. And you could do that, but then again, like you can, it's like when you invest so much of your time into this one thing, into this profession. Of course, your people are always, at the point of being, completely out of reality or current things with whatever career, profession, trade that they take. Sometimes it becomes obsolete. So you do have that with healthcare, or health welfare. I mean, that's gonna be never ending. There's gonna always be someone hurt that's gonna need some kind of attention, unless we ever make it to the point where we can be self-healing, or have our little robot fix our boo-boos. I mean, there's so much to that that we won't get into at this very moment, but the reason why they're saying there's such scary numbers isn't what you might think, and it's because it's levels of paperwork and data that that they've entered in, both with medical records that go digitally, and having to check up on the patients and the task. It kind of sounds like they're blowing the people who work in these fields, which again, there's no doubt that there's stress to it, but at the same time, there's so much that people have to be pissed off. Well, you got to imagine, like, you're waiting there to be seen, and you feel like you're there for hours, and even when you are seen, you're either not believed, or they kind of shoo you off, or they can give so many fucks about you. There is so much that goes into that. It causes, it's like I feel like it's like a domino effect, because surely people there can give a fuck about you. They hate you. They're pissed because you gave them the evil eye, and then the fact that they had to pay this copay, and the fact that they may not be able to afford this, and that it's inconvenience to them because they're watching the Surviving R. Kelly thing, and they had to fucking leave, and they got to wait till it comes back on again next week because they don't have it in demand, or whatever dumb reason that we get upset about in this first world of or in the end, I mean, having our first world problems. It goes without saying, like, that happens. But again, even more so, the fact that they see so much life and death, ending and beginning constantly. They just figure, no, who am I? And in all honesty, who are we that we can feel a need to keep going if we're so easily replaced? You know what I'm saying? And I talked last week about there being studies that supposedly we're not reproducing enough to replace our own selves. That's crazy. And it also makes you think too, for the sheer fact of the small amount of people who actually are families who have a mother, daughter, father, all within the same home and not separated and scattered between. Imagine those that don't have any of that. Imagine what they grew up to be, and the kind of influence that they're gonna let linger, and who knows what lobbyists and politicians that they turn out to be, and just the realm of where the tower starts leaning, the higher up that we build this bitch to go. And again, that could go into so many different topics and theories and very heavy sets of conceptual understanding. But something I guess I don't take too much to think about or to digest. This man decided to ingest, or actually not really ingest, but inject himself with 18 doses of semen right into his arm. And apparently it was to cure his back pain. Motherfucker ended up going to the hospital regardless. And it's because this, I don't know if it was in Ireland or if it was I thought it was in Australia, but they're saying that Irish doctors had reported baffling case of a 33-year-old man who injected his own semen intravenously for over a year and a half, and which I guess he had self-developed as a cure, intended to treat his chronic back pain, and it does not to appear to have worked. And they're saying that as he's injected himself for the past 18 months, he had to seek medical attention when he started to get a sudden onset lower back pain. Oh, no. He started getting, he's talking about how it started because he has some lower back pain. But you see pictures, and again, I'm going to put the links in the bio or wherever it is you're ingesting this below or around. And you can see his arm just swollen up. You could just tell all the fucking cum just got blocked up, and it made him look like he had muscle. Maybe that's why he was doing it. He's like, oh, should I look swole? No, you just got a bunch of loads clumped up together. They ain't got nowhere to go because it's your fucking bloodstream. Where the hell do you expect us to go? Where's your urethra? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm not going to go too much into it because I remember sending it to my boss. I was like, you want to see something fucked? And he wasn't very happy. The headline says it itself, but apparently it did not cure his back pain. He now had to literally had to flush himself, and I don't know if in Ireland everyone's just drunk, maybe, and they're gonna just talk and just be like, yeah. So apparently, I can't do an Irish accent. I wish I could. Like, oh, so I was drinking Guinness, you see, and I don't know. That was more. I have no idea what that was, but could you just imagine, just be like, yeah, I got really drunk, and I had back pain. So yeah, I came into a syringe, a totally clean syringe, by the way. Yeah, but fucking full of cum, and just put it in there, try to help my back. Well, my muscles look a little bit swole, so I figured maybe I should keep this going. It's going about a year and a half. I think my arms are all dead weight by now, and yeah, that's just crazy. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I've cummed on some awkward things, not having a sock or a napkin or a cum blanket or something to put it in. I think I used was it a tea leaf, the little candles you put into thing. I catch it into something. All right, you never know where you got to put things in. You can't just catch it in your hand. Feels too weird. Bounces around. Gets on your shoes. On that note, I think I'm gonna wrap things up. I think I'm going delusional. Yes, and I gotta when I end up finding something with the Busta Rhymes lyric that didn't go anywhere. No, I do gotta wrap things up. I gotta do some family thug fizzles and yeah, enjoy the rest of my Sunday. I'm hoping that y'all, whenever y'all injecting this, ingesting, no, listening, enjoying. Hopefully you enjoying wherever it is that you're doing this at. I hope that you're well, and hope that you know that you can always get at me on most social medias at Papo. So that's SOULPAPO. Of course, at Gmail if you wanted to message. If ever you wanted to become a producer of the show, without any doubt, you can go to www.patreon.com/soul Papo. And yeah, most any other places you could take that in. Hopefully, you see me there. If you want to shout out to the main podcast, Arizona Soul Podcast, of course, you can email the Arizona Soul Podcast or just Arizona Soul Podcast at gmail.com. Website should be arizonasoulpodcast.com. The YouTubes and most of the social medias are shortened up a little bit to where it's at Arizona Soul Pod. So again, the word Arizona, the word soul, and the word POD. And if ever you wanted to call, leave a message, whether you go and talk some shit or enlighten us, tell us a funny story, or just, I don't know, want to pull off a skit and you wouldn't mind us playing it, or we can keep things private depending on what you advise us of. Again, it's up to you. You can call area code 480-588-4688. Again, the number is 480-588-4688. I hope to hear from you. I hope that you as well, and that this upcoming week treats you even better, and that you can, go forward and prosper and all that other good stuff. Appreciate you listening. I really do. So I hope you give me a call, and hope that again. May God bless you. All right. Okay.